I want married women who cheat on their husbands. It was the night of my father's funeral, and after the burial, there was a wake at the house. The wake dragged on well into the night, and when everyone had gone home, I found myself sitting in the kitchen drinking and talking to my mom. Mostly, we reminisced about Dad. Mom wasn't so tearful, in fact. She was relieved that he was gone. It sounds cold, but it really wasn't. He had been sick for so long, and she had to watch him slowly fade away. She was relieved that his suffering was over, and relieved that the rest of the family could now move on with their lives. She had already started to talk about what she and her father had done when they were in their 20s when she suddenly stopped. "Rob, honey, can I ask you a very personal question?" I grinned and replied, "You've been doing this for 35 years. Why ask now?" "It's very, very personal, dear." "Okay, but I reserve the right not to answer." "Why haven't you gotten married yet? You look great, and I've seen the way women look at you, but even though you always have a new girlfriend, I've never seen you get serious about her." "There are some things you should never tell your mother, no matter how close you are, so I did what I had to do." I lied. "I just never found the right woman, Mom." Actually, I did find the right woman, even a few, but it was a catch-22. I was looking for a certain type of woman and found plenty of them, but once I found them, they turned out to be the kind of women I could never marry. For one thing, they were already married, and if I happened to find an unmarried one who could be the kind of woman I was looking for, I would run away from her screaming. I couldn't tell my mother about it, and even if I did, I couldn't explain it to her properly. And the one thing I could never, ever tell her was that it was her fault. I can imagine her face if I'd said, "It's all your fault, Mom. If you hadn't been running around with such a bunch of promiscuous, cheating women, I wouldn't be the way I am, and maybe I'd be married, and you'd have grandchildren." No, I couldn't tell her that. So I decided to say, "I just never found the right woman." "Well, Rob, you're still young and there's still time. You'll find the right one eventually." She got up, kissed me on the cheek, and drifted off to sleep. I finished my drink and headed home to my apartment. I lay in my bed looking up at the ceiling, and for some strange reason, my mind worked on what would happen if I gave my mom an honest answer to her question. "Mom, the reason I'm not married is because most of your girlfriends were round-heeled tramps." "And how did that keep you from getting married?" "Do you remember that Fraternal Order of Eagles dance you talked me into going to on my 19th birthday?" "Vaguely." Dad was out of town on business. Beth and her husband Mark, Dorothy and her husband Don, and you and me were there. In those days, it was legal to drink from the age of 18, and Dorothy and Beth thought it would be fun to load me up on my birthday and were always buying me mixed drinks. They didn't know that I didn't like hard liquor, and that I was pouring the booze out rather than drinking it. But they drank theirs, and after a while, they got a good high. Somewhere around this time, they got the idea that it would be fun to tease the birthday boy. They started taking turns pulling me onto the dance floor, and every time they found themselves with their backs to their husbands, they pressed their bodies against mine. I was young, my hormones were raging, and two sexy older women rubbing against me quickly got me aroused, and then it got worse. They whispered things like, "You've got a roll of quarters in your pocket, or you're just glad to be with me." Dorothy even asked me if I would go outside with her to get some fresh air and get my dignity out and show it to her. "I don't see how any of this could keep you from getting married. Be patient, I'll get to it." Anyway, by the time we left the dance, I had a huge case of blue balls. When it was time to get in the car, Mark was driving. You and Don sat in the front with him, and I was in the back seat between Dorothy and Beth. We hadn't even pulled out of the parking lot when Beth put her hand on my body. Once she was sure I was aroused, she started telling you and her husband about the band, how good they were, and that their song selection included so many of her favorites. While she was talking, she unzipped my pants and started hitting on me. At the same time, Dorothy took my hand, ran it under my dress, and placed it on her body. And so we raced down the highway, Both women carrying on conversations with you and their husbands while simultaneously playing with me. The whole time I sat there scared to death that Mark, Don, or you would turn around and see what was going on, but neither of you ever did. Beth just kept on talking to Mark and batting me away. It was a hell of a turn-on to have two married women, both old enough to be my mother, playing with my body while having casual conversations with their other halves. It was a very nice birthday party that I will never forget. And that stopped you from getting married? It was a start. That's not all, but I have a question for you first. It was the girls you ran around with that always interested me. The good old birds of a feather fly together omen. She blushed and looked away. Honestly, Rob, how can you ask your mother about such things? And I got my answer. I wondered if my father knew or suspected. She quickly pulled back to spare me from asking questions about her. I still don't understand how Dot and Beth stopped you from getting married. The day after the night at Eagles, Dot called me and told me that Dawn was out of town for 2 days. She needed help moving her things, and could I come over and help her? I jumped at the opportunity, and why not? She told me to be there at 7:30 that night, and I told her I was looking forward to helping her. She giggled and said, "I bet you will, you naughty boy." So what, honey? Don't tell your mom, okay? It'll just make her nervous. I arrived at 7:20, and when she opened the door, she was wearing a pair of high-heeled shoes and nothing else. I was stunned. She was my first fully nude woman, and my heart nearly stopped. I had seen naked women in magazines, but Dorothy was real. She was just standing there, and all I had to do was reach out to touch her. She saw my expression, and an amused smile appeared on her face. "You're a little early, honey. A little impatient, aren't you?" I probably blushed, and she laughed. "It's okay, honey. I like that in a man." She ran her hand over my body and giggled. "Yeah, I can't wait. Come on, honey, let's not waste any time." And taking my hand, she led me into her bedroom. I hoped it would be like this, but I was a little unnerved by the plain and dry aspect of it. So much so that I muttered something inaudible. "Aren't we going to move furniture or something?" And Dorothy, or Dot, as she asked me to call her, laughed and said, "If we do it right, honey, the bed will move all over the apartment. If you want to move something, move the phone so I can reach it from the bed." I found that curious, but I moved it. And then Dot pushed me back on the bed and started pulling down my pants. After a minute or so, she stopped to tell me to take off my shirt. And after I did, she came back to me. We had sex all night, and then she lay next to me, caressing my body. The phone rang, and Dot looked at her watch. "About time," she said, and squeezed my body lightly. She reached for the phone and answered it. "Hello? Oh, hey, baby, miss me?" With one hand holding the phone to her ear and the other playing with my body, she answered, "Just lying here in bed thinking about you." "I love you, baby." "I love you too, baby. Talk to you later." She tossed the phone on the pillow and sank down on the bed. She looked up at me and grinned. "How about it, honey? Do you think you'd enjoy being my sex toy?" The next day, I had just gotten home from class when the phone rang. I answered it, and it was Beth. "I heard you were at that cheater's house last night. I was supposed to be the first one to pick you up." "You were supposed to be the first?" "What, did you flip a coin?" She called and asked me to come over and help her move her stuff, and I did. "The cheater knew I'd call you and just couldn't stand the idea that I might have you first." "I thought she was your friend." "Yeah, but she's still a cheater. Are you doing anything right now?" "No, I just got home from class." "Can you come over?" "Right now?" "As soon as possible." I said I'd be right over, put a note on the table that I wouldn't be home for dinner that night, and then left to go see Beth. When she opened the door to let me in, I was surprised to see Mark sitting in the living room watching TV. I walked in and looked at her with a question written all over my face, and she grinned. "Mark, honey, Rob is here to help me move stuff down to the basement. If you need me, just give me a holler." And taking my hand, she led me down to the basement. "Mark has a bad back. and he has to be careful not to sprain it so he can't help me with the heavy stuff. She led me over to the corner where the washer and dryer stood, then took off her skirt. "Help me climb up on the dryer, honey." I helped. Next, we had hot sex. That's the whole story, Mom. For the next 6 years, Dorothy and Beth used me as their sex toy, and I enjoyed it. It especially turned me on when I made love to them while they were on the phone with their husbands, or if their husbands were in the next room or something nearby. I'd still be their plaything now if Don hadn't gotten a promotion and had to transfer out of state, and Beth hadn't been killed in a car accident. That doesn't make sense, Rob. So you had an affair, so what? It ended when Dorothy and Don moved to Dayton. How could that stop you from finding a nice girl and getting married? Because after Dorothy and Beth, a nice girl just isn't right for me. I need cheating women, not nice girls. I want married women who cheat on their husbands. I'm looking for married women with husbands who travel. I want to be in his bed and have sex with his wife while she is on the phone with him. I want to be with her while she tells him she loves him and misses him. This dear mom is exactly the kind of woman I want. But the flip side of the coin is that I couldn't bear to be married to such a woman. I couldn't leave the house knowing that at any moment she would be making love to someone else. No, Mom. Your boy Rob will never get married. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.